bizarre. And Muhammad will hold to this thought. The angel Gabriel has corrected the Old Testament, and I'm telling you the true version. Problem, of course, is that the Jews' Old Testament is thousands of years older, 1500 BC. The stories about Abraham are written by Moses. Well, now 600 AD, we find Muhammad seeking to rewrite that history in the Quran, and of course the Christians and the Jews are not buying it. As a result of that, increasingly, Muhammad sees the Jews and the Christians not as his friends, but as his enemies. So the deeper you get into the Quran, the more intense the intolerance becomes. And ultimately, when Jews and Christians simply are not prepared to accept his version of history or of theology, he then expels. He has by now gathered together sufficient strength to expel 2 tribes of Jews from Medina, and Muhammad was personally involved in the beheading of more than 500 Jews in Medina as he exterminated a 3rd tribe of Jews, and thus the expansion of Islam began. Now, what I've just said to you is objective history. This is how it unfolded. So we now have 3 significantly different perceptions of faith. The Jews, on one hand, will, for most of history, be isolated and defensive. There is no danger that the Jews are trying to take over the world. They are simply trying to survive. They are simply trying to keep their religion intact because they're still waiting for their Messiah. And as a result of that, their whole way of life, wherever you find them in the world, is to try to maintain their purity, maintain their Jewishness, and hang on until their Messiah comes. Christians, on the other hand, have come to understand that the issue of faith is something that has to take place inside the heart. You can't force people to believe. In fact, faith that is forced is not faith at all. You have to embrace it from the heart. Therefore, if Christianity is behaving rationally, and if Christianity is living out its roots, it will both preach and invite. But it will never be involved in seeking to force, simply because at the core it is understood we are children of Abraham by believing God in the same way he did, and that must be a voluntary and willingly yielded faith relationship with God. If Christianity is behaving itself, it will never be militarily aggressive, nor will it ever attempt to force people into its theological perspective. It must be given by invitation, that invitation freely received. Islam, on the other hand, demands submission to Allah, and from its roots and its core, it is militant and compulsive. It is about submission, and I can force you to submit. I may not be able to get you to believe, but I can force you to submit. Now, individual Muslims may have nothing to do with that approach to life. Individual Muslims may be no more militant than anybody else in life. But Islam itself, at its core, is militant because from its very inceptions, from its founder Muhammad, it has adopted the perspective that submission can be enforced. Let's fast forward to the 20th century. For 1800 years, the Jews have been dispersed all around the world. Islam flowed initially aggressively right across Africa into Europe. It came around and conquered as far as Spain before it regressed and then had its own wars to fight with the Mongols and others. And as a result of that, for some hundreds of years, it was somewhat dormant, did not expand as aggressively, continuously as it did in the beginning. The Turks, for some hundreds of years prior to the 20th century, had held the Middle East, and so Arabs had simply occupied the Middle East. But during the early 1900s, the early 20th century, there is this rising cry in the hearts of the Jews to have their own homeland. Then the First World War changes everything, because Britain expels the Turks from the Middle East. And as a result of that, the 1917 Balfour Declaration was a plan to permit a homeland for the Jews to be re-established in Palestine. The aim was to partition the land and give a portion, the portion on the left, Palestine, to the Jews. The Transjordan could be given to the Palestinians, and as a result of that, both of them could have a homeland. Now, there's always a problem with that. If you have built a hotel, or if you have owned fields, or if you have owned a home, and someone suggests to you that you could move and go somewhere else, there will be a tendency for you to say, up your nose with a rubber hose, I am not moving anywhere, this is my land. And so now the Brits find themselves trapped between Arabs who have been living in an area for years and Jews who are crying out for a homeland, for which a rising tide of compassion is unfolding in the early 20th century. It's the British who now find themselves trapped between hostile Arabs and Zionistic Jews. In 1947, after the Second World War and after the tragedy of the Holocaust, where Hitler destroyed more than 12 million people, 6 million of them were Jews, another 6 million were other nationalities, including gypsies. This strong Zionist push, it is too dangerous to be a Jew without a homeland. The United Nations ratifies the Balfour Declaration, and a determination is made that on May the 15th, 1948, Israel will be permitted to exist as a nation again. The pale areas would be the places where the Jews would have authority. The darker areas would be the places where the Palestinians would have authority. However, the day after the declaration of Israel's establishment as a nation, the 5 surrounding nations made a decision determined to attempt to destroy them utterly and attempt to wipe them